Okay, let's see if this is working. Looks like we are now online. Good day. This is Alan Pollock with Delta Investment Group, findmedealsnow.com. This is the training video, Delta Budget and Price Point Calculator, General Navigation. This is bronze level. You'll see on the middle of the page here, it's ID 110 and Rev 22. Yes, 22 revs. This is groundbreaking stuff. So you're really going to enjoy this from the first time that ID 110 was released. Again, there's a disclaimer at the bottom. You can read that at your discretion. Therefore, no promises made as to the success of any receiving party, and as such, this notice is acknowledged by the recipient. So we're going to first go through a couple of screens, PowerPoint screens. They will match the instruction sheet. I think it's 5 pages. And then from there, after we go through the static information, we'll go live and you'll get the general navigation. There is a gold level program as well that takes this down to the penny on the dollar per square foot. So you'll actually see some of those. The FMDN Delta Budget and Price Point Calculator is used to determine the cost of acquisition and expected profit from an SFR, fix and flip, or acquisitions. It requires the basic knowledge of Excel and Adobe Reader. In addition to that, there are some minimum system requirements. Certainly Windows 7, 8, or 10, minimum 4 gigabytes of memory is suggested, 2 gigabytes of free disk storage. You can also use a cloud. We recommend that any change in the future will require some additional information. It will work with Apple and Mac. If you are on Mac OS 10.15 Catalina, you will most likely have to partition to include Windows Excel, or if you're running Excel over your Mac, that would probably work as well. Contact our support team if you need any additional help. We've seen this already, the minimum process for downloading the attached Excel spreadsheet. So you kind of have to know how to copy a spreadsheet. The instruction sheet, as I mentioned, is probably about 5 pages. I'd have to count them again. And that is via a PDF, which opens up, of course, in virtually all Windows. You must have the application software, not just the read-only or display only. You'd have to have the actual application software, Office 365, Office 2016. You need a live version of Excel. And finally, you'd have to be able to download the attached Excel live spreadsheet and instructions. I don't think there's too many surprises from that. So with that, let's go to the static information. This is page 1 of the actual hard copy of the, I guess you would call it the instruction sheet. Real simple. It's broken down into 4 sections. Section 1, as it says on the right, is the property information. We are going to go live and you're going to see all this stuff hotkeyed and interactive. Section number 2 is how much to offer, variables. HML is hard money lending, private funds, bank, whatever your funding source is. We just happen to designate it as HML. Section 3 is a line item budget sheet. This was actually worked in concert with a national promoter. Many of the price points here are used on a national basis. We can probably even get down to the details of it. The main difference that you're going to see going from a static to the live version, which we call Rev 22, is that we've included some really neat stuff, such as bulk calculation and some other dollar per square foot calculations that were not on the original presentation. And then number 4 is really the net offer calculation and adjustments. The reason for that is because you may have a contractor that gives you a line item price to do the kitchen, let's say, and they came in plus or minus what your budget was. You want to track that. Maybe there is an appraiser who adds their 2 cents into it, in which case then you have to make some adjustments. We're going to go live with that. You're going to see those interactive to the latest version. Kind of a scale down. Let's go to section number 1. Within section number 1, we call that where the property is. And you will see this one happens to follow the Kirkmichael property in Riverside, California. I'm not going to go to each cell of the details. We do that at the gold program. For the most part, what you really want to concentrate are on the bold red fields. So if I was to move my cursor over here, right here, this is month hold, and it's not got number 6. This is the intent that we're going to buy and sell within a 6-month period, and everything is based off of that hold period relative to cost of funds, return on investment, things of that nature. The other section that you're going to have to fill in here, and I do recommend that you do fill in the address and of course what the purpose of the situation was. In this case, we had 2 red fields. One is whether it's listed or the current ask, and of course ARV, after repair value. As you probably have heard in other presentations, everything is off of the after repair value. You're certainly not going to purchase the property at the after repair value with the expectation that you're going to then sell it after the repair value. You'd be losing both the commission, the holding cost, and any money you put in. So that's a par deal. That's probably something we wouldn't recommend. With that, just kind of we're down to section number 2, and we're going to try to keep this within about 45 minutes, so I might be going a little fast. Section number 2 is really the workhorse. This is where all the number crunching happens. So let's kind of look at this. By the way, you probably already know from the summary, everything is based off of profit. We do not engage or recommend that you buy a property with the intent to lose money. So therefore, the whole concept of working the numbers and price point calculator was to begin with a known profit, and then from that profit to then dissect out or work down the list, as opposed to the other way around, which is you buy it for X, you put in Y, you sell it for Z, and what's left is your profit. We completely flip that head over heels, and we say, wait a minute, I'm not even going to touch a hammer on this thing. I'm not even going to go into contract on this thing until I know that I'm going to make my profit. So my profit is always all the way up at the top. So let's go through with that. Again, the bold red, other than this factor here, the bold red are generally numbers you can put into the system. And again, we will go live and we'll play with these numbers. But in this case, I'm saying that the profit load is 12%. That's based on an annual profit, not annualized. We'll get to that point in a minute. And this is 12% on a conservative basis or an aggressive. And if I'm using hard money, private money, bank money, I can put in what that section is. We'll tell you where that is calculated. And we're saying we want 12% if I have to hold it for a longer period of time than an aggressive. The reason that we want to segregate those out is for time frame. If you can buy the property and sell it in 30, 60, 90 days, you might call that an aggressive. But if you're going to have to put in the time and whether the market is shifting, time of year, holidays, all those other variables, you may have to hold on to this property for longer than what would have been a period designated as aggressive. We call that conservative. What you'll also see in the parentheses here, under conservative, 67.72 and 59.64, those are actually numbers that are taken from a national promoter, and we try to stay within the scope of those numbers. But as you're going to find out, we typically work within a 72 to 75 on the ARV, not including any major repairs such as fire, water, empty pool, retaining wall, things of that nature, cracked foundation. Those would be additional to those striking numbers. And once you do 1 or 2 of these things, you'll literally look at a house and you'll say, okay, I'm going to get my calculator out at 72 cents on the dollar, maybe 75, and you'll be within a striking point within 1 to 3% of what the actual numbers will come out to, and you're going to see proof of that in just a minute. Also here, if you're using a gap partner is somebody who puts up the down payment money, is a partner who puts up your equity. Maybe they're a signator on the loan and they get a profit share of the deal. They're typically still going to have to put up some money. But the reason that we want to have a a column for the gap partner is so that you can bring in partners that are going to help you complete the transaction by putting up the funds, or whatever your profit relationship is with them is calculated out separately so that you can give them a number to the, actually it's to the tenths of a percent. It's beyond, yeah, it would be the tenths of a percent of the return. Pretty tight number. You're also going to see here that the calculation for cost of funds in this particular column will come from this green section. Again, when we go live, you'll see that. The other segment here that's been blown up is to show the benefit of the buttons. We added this in after version number 4 or 5, and this allows you within one little click to determine whether you're not using conservative, aggressive, hard money, conservative, aggressive, and you get to pick and see the variables just by one click instead of moving all the numbers around. The system will do that for you. All you have to do is pick what number you want, and then, or what button you want, and you'll see that all change up. Kind of a drill down from that. As you remember, I showed you the 50% for the gap partner. It's right up here. I think it's still live. Yeah, I'm still live. And what it's showing is the load of the ARV in terms of actually the load to hold, and the remaining profit based on that percentage that you put in, and then all the other numbers scrubbing. In this case, we had $52,000. If you had a 50% gap partner, then you're going to split that $52,000. Sure enough, 26.1, 26.1. The gap partner for putting up their 50%, or whatever the responsible number is, will be a 14.81% return on investment. These are annualized. The reason they're annualized is because of the hold period number 6 right here. That's our hold period, and you'll see how that will change relative to the months of hold. If it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 15 months, you put in the number of months of hold, and it'll recalculate everything to the tenths of a percent. With that, this little green section right down here, you'll see that as well. That's for the hard money. We've made some new improvements, not on the instruction page, but actually on the version 22. You're going to see that's actually going to not only give you the calculations and the cost of the money and the relative period of time of the funds cost, it's actually even going to calculate literally to the dollar how much you've got to come into escrow to literally close this transaction. Page 5 of the instruction sheet is the actual line items. And again, you could add as many as you want on your own. We've really carried this based on the most popular items. You can add, you can change the names if you want. Most of the fields are by square foot or by quantity. And we're also going to talk about this column right here, which is add, subtract, or adjustments. So again, as I mentioned, let's say you have a contractor who's going to give you a bid on the kitchen, and it's either plus or minus, or there's a value add or subtracted. So you get plus columns, a minus column, and a plus minus column for any third opinions that you may have to take in terms of the calculation. You'll see why that's important at the bottom. We're going to get down here to, oh, how did it get there? Move there, sorry. Moving my cursor, you're going to see some new things down here at the bottom as well, where we're giving you a bulk price. That's really, really cool. I think that's groundbreaking, because as you get more sophisticated or comfortable with this, or as I mentioned, using number 72 or 75 for the percentage of rehab of the ARV, you'll be able to just plug in one bulk number and not even mess around with 24, 23 line items of detail. You could put in just one bulk price. I can tell you that you'd probably be within 1 to 2% of your actual budget, unless there's something major that would have to be designated by your line items. And then on top of that, you'll select whether or not you want to use line items for your calculation, for your dollar per square foot, or you want to use bulk, and you're going to see that in the live presentation. And of course, now section number 4. That is actually the culmination or the composite of this whole thing. Again, you're going to see what the dollar per the dollar discount to the ARV, and then of course what that relative percentage is in terms of dollars, any adjustments, if there's plus or minus for the lot, that's separate because that's not moving with dollars per square foot. And then of course it will give you also what we call the confidence. The confidence is the percentage of the ask price. So it's good to know ahead of time if you're going to be, let's say, at 80, this is 79.9%. I personally would round it up so I could say that I'm at 80% of the ask price as opposed to 79.9. But the point is, it's important for you to know what the dollar price is that you're making an offer right here, and what that is in terms of their discount factor to what they're actually asking for. Certainly the closer their asking price is to the actual value, that number is going to get more confident. The bigger this spread is typically because they're asking more money than what the after repair value will generate based on all of the calculations. We didn't touch base on this, but I will go live. We have a cushion number here. That is a variable up at the top. I guess what we could do is just go up there real quick. Right up here, one more. Right up here on the front page, page number 1, you'll see there's an added value. It says value add, 5, 7, half, 10%. That's all variable. You're going to see that's changed to a red in the actual live 22. And the reason for that is, let's say you're doing your updates or your rehab, and the market's going up. If it's going up 1%, 2%, 3%, maybe you're adding more features or better product that's going to push it beyond what the initial calculated ARV is, you can put that in as a cushion, which would allow you to then make a higher purchase price. In this case, with a 5% cushion, the ARV is going to go from $435, that's $180 per square foot, to $456, so it's about $20,000. And you could take that $20,000 lift and you could add that to your initial offer price because the property is going up in value or because you're putting in better finishes. That might get you a little closer than the 77% on the percent of ask price. With extra 20%, you might then be up into the 85% or whatever that number turns out to be. So that's the instruction sheet. With that, I think the next thing is we go live. This is usually where I have some technology challenges, so let me figure out how to do that. I have now got to go in and launch the Excel, and here it is. Let's see if I can do this. There's a method to the madness. And here it is. The reason I wanted to launch the Excel as being live is because there's some enabling tools that you have to make sure that you click. So the reason I'm taking one step back is to go 2 steps forward. When you first launch the Excel, you're going to probably get this little notice that says automatic update links have been disabled, and you've got to enable those. Those are all those online calculations. You're going to get one more notice, and that's so that all the links attach. Now you're done, but you will get that every single time. This should be the Kirkmichael, oops, operator error. How did that happen? Well, it's good to know that all the pieces work. Okay, here we are. There you go, it does work. This is the Kirkmichael, 5 bedrooms, 3 bath. Looks like there's a half bath. I guess that was there in terms. We have a 6 month hold. This should all be in concert with the instruction sheet. We tried to keep it as close as possible, and then we'll probably point out some of the other variables. So let's just say, for example, now again, I would suggest that you put in, save the original as a save as, put in the address, put in the city and the state, put in the bedrooms, they're all in red. Here's where you put in your hold. You're going to see a bunch of numbers change. If I make this from 6 to 12, you're going to see that there's some stuff going on. The one thing that's going on right here is the ROI. So just take a look what happens when the hold period goes from 6 months to 12 months. Yes, the percentage of the ROI goes down because what? Time. Instead of getting paid in 6 months, I don't get paid for 12 months. That's a cost, a time cost of manager, time cost of money. I think that's the correct pronunciation. Here's where we put in the current price and the ask price in the event that the ARV was then going to be, I'll just manually put in 455,000. You're going to see a whole bunch of other things going to be changing. I would recommend that we just go back and just follow the instruction sheet for the time being. Here the value add 5, 7.5, and 10 were the original ones. I'm going to say it's 1, 2, and 3, just as an example. And you're going to see they're relatively small numbers, but you can change that anytime you want. Again, it's giving you online the confidence number. So in this case, we're saying that if they're asking 410,000 and we give them an offer of 369,000, we are at 90% of their ask price, or 85%, or 80, or 75, or 70. In the event that you try to change some of those things, oops, that's not what I want to do. Hang on. We can change those, but if you try to change any of the other cells, most of them will give you a protection update. And of course, we do that so that you can't break it. But here you know right away. And of course, since everything is driven by dollar per square foot, we calculate every dollar per square foot every time we touch it. So for example, the ARV right here at the top is $180.57 per square foot. Is that $410,000 divided by the square footage of this property gives us $1 per square foot. 90% is going to be $153.18, and so on and so forth. So virtually every time there's a dollar amount that's relative to the property, not the financing, but the property, you're going to get a relative dollar per square foot. Hope that's not too confusing. Another thing, you can change what your time frames are here. These are all changeable in the event that you're going to go to 200 or 365 days. Let's say you need more market time, maybe staging, maybe you need more construction time. You can change that. It's just a great headline to make sure that your months hold are in concert with your timeline. Hope you understand that. If you understand that top section, and again, because this is the bronze level, this is really about entry and using the spreadsheet. We're not going to get down to a lot of the minutia, which literally takes us down to the penny on dollar per square foot, but you'll see where some of that happens. Again, if we go down to section number 2, that was section number 1. Section number 2, this is the engine. Everything happens here. So as I mentioned, we added from the instruction sheet, which I don't believe, I think we had buttons. Don't we have buttons? Well, we had buttons. They're more interactive now. Let's just go with that. So you choose what's going to be your time frame, and all you'll actually have to do is just hit that little button, and everything is going to change. All the numbers will change relative to your hold and your particular, whether or not you're using cash or hard money. Again, in the parentheses, those are numbers that are from a national promoter relative to what your offer price should be based on thousands and thousands of homes that they've done. So they're very, very finite numbers to work with. So the closer you can get to those numbers, the more validation that you'll get. In this case, we've got a factor of 73 cents. Remember, I said it was 72 to 75 cents. Now, that does not include the cost of funds, which is going to be another 4 to 5%. And you'll just do that math right here. The reason that we don't use the hard money as part of our initial calculation is because we're not quite sure whether or not it's going to be 70 or 75 cents on the acquisition. We're not sure if it's going to be 2 points or 3 points. We're not sure if it's going to be 8% interest or 12% interest. What you do know is that if it was a cash offer, you want to be within that spot. Again, 72 to 75, could be 71, could be 70, could be 69. It could be 78 if it doesn't need as much work as what we're going to suggest that we have. Just a couple other things here that might be helpful. If you want to know what this 15 and 10 is, these are, again, part of those national promoter numbers. They project that you want to build this on a 15% budget or 15% profit for conservative. That means you're going to hold it longer. And because you're going to turn it faster, you can make a less percent because you're going to turn them more times per year. The point is, these are national numbers. You can't change them. It should come up and say you can't change it. Yeah, it gives me an error. It's nice to know that your percentage of profit load is in the range of what the national promoters are doing. So if we were to go up and say, okay, conservative is at 15%, we can match that national promoters. Now, it might be that, and you'll see that that number came even down. It came from 73 closer to the 67, the 75, right? Well, we didn't change that one. Here it's 64 and 59. The point is, it's giving you kind of a little guideline of what should be your designated or projected profit. Same thing going on up here. This little 10% up here is the national promoters recommended load for the rehab, 10%. That's actually how we came up with the 72 to 75. That's saying, okay, I want a certain amount, I want 10% for the rehab. I'm going to make 15% on my profit, that's 25%. And then on top of that, you have a load for the closing, commissions, tax, insurance, escrow, utilities, security, all those other things. In this case, their national load is 8%, in which case that's how they got down to 67% and 72%. Those are just relative numbers. You can plug in what you want. In the event, let's say, for example, that your commissions are not 5%, they're 4%, and your escrow, title, insurance, utilities is 2%. You might make that 6%. In which case that's going to change. That's going to actually change your ROI. I'm going to do that again. If I made it 7%, watch what happens over here in the Gap Partners ROI. Everything is interactive. It's going to change based on what your load is for all of those things. And then, of course, in the event that you're using funds, they had an 8% load for funds. That's typically going to be the 3 points plus the cost of interest for the window of time. They had an 8% load. Ours came out to 6.8%. We'll talk about that. Hope that makes some reasons to you. Here, the gap partner, in the event that you're not using a gap partner and you're using all your own money, then you'd put in that 100%. And sure enough, you're going to get the 52,000, and your net ROI for 6 months is 29,000 or 29%, 24, and so on and so forth. You can go in the event that you've got to give your partner 60% and you're only going to keep 40%. Just plug in that number relative to, is it you or them, a partner, a gap partner, an equity partner, somebody who's going to lend you money from their 401k or their self-directed IRA, or lend you money from their cash investment. You can keep track of all of that literally to the tenths of the percent, extremely tight. this is really cool. This is, I think, what is absolutely groundbreaking for this version. So what we did is we said, it's all fine and good that you got the little buttons over here. I'm moving around on you. But in the event that we're using our own cash, even if it's our Gap Partners cash, we're not using bank or hard money, you would use one of the top two buttons, conservative, aggressive, or you'd use private money here. Watch what happens to that number right now. So let's start at the top. If we're using a conservative time frame, that would be more than 30, 60, 90, let's say it's 90 to 180 days that we're holding the money. And we're using our own cash. We've got to come up with $318,000 right here of cash, and we've got to come up with the 7.5% of the rehab money. The closing cost, which is $30,450, that's going to come out of our close of escrow. So let's see if that number makes sense. We've got our rehab. We're going to show you where that comes from. Don't worry about it yet. Came out to a total of $33,565 plus the 318. We got to come up with $352,350. That is based on one of these two buttons. Now, the reason that that button changes by just that little amount, what is it, $1,000? Well, it's about $12,000. That is because of the period of time of hold. We have a longer hold time, and therefore there are some other expenses that are loaded into it. Now let's move down to this section right here. You're going to use the button for hard money. It's going to take into consideration what that money costs. I'm going to show you that in one more minute. We're going to go to here and we're going to say, if I use borrowed money, hard money, private money, my Gap partner puts up all the funds as opposed to our cash. Let's see what happens. How much money do I need to come in at close of escrow? Bang, there it is. In this case, it came up to $26,000. That's because we've got it very heavily leveraged. That number is going to change again based on whether or not it's conservative or aggressive. Do you see how that works? Based on the period of time of hold, even at the cash or at the funded level, it will tell us how much we have to come in with cash. The reason this is so low is because we're coming in with 75%. Now we're going down to the financing, 75% of the acquisition and virtually 100% of the refi. Might be a little tough, so let's get down some realistic numbers. Let's just say that it's 70%, still the 3 points. The ARV is 435. That's going to change when we move this up here. And this is coming in that the lender is going to give us $304,000. And then in addition to that, we really didn't have to come in with very much money in terms of our rehab. This is a light rehab, but we're going to load this thing up a little bit. You're going to see you got to come in with probably a little bit closer to 10 to 20%, but we'll get there. You can also change the number of points. Points is usually a dollar amount up front that's paid to either a broker or to a lender. They call those specifically points, but if it's 2 points, then you're going to see that that's going to change. And of course, here we're at 12% interest. In the event that you get it for 10, you're going to see that the cost of funds keeps going down. And with that, we could actually pay a little bit more money because I'm not paying the lender as much money. We're going to move down. You're going to see the culmination or the net result in just a minute. I can look at this right here. This is a really important line we added virtually in Rev 22. We're using line items, and it came out to $13.93 per square foot on the rehab. We literally track to the penny the dollar per square foot on the rehab. We actually have testimonials where we actually brought in from the beginning to the end. The net difference was $1.73 on the ARV dollar per square foot. Extremely tight, and we've got great testimonials for that. So with that, you put in the red number, that's the dollar, that's the square footage. Everything is relative to the dollar per square foot, such as carpet and paint and flooring and roofing, and everything comes down to a relative dollar per square foot. Why? Because that's what your ARV is based on. So you want to make sure that your dollar per square foot or your square footage is put in right away. And then you can't change this number. That's a calculated number. You're going to get an error. You can change the square footage of the lot. The reason that could be important is in the event that you've got a landscaping based on dollar per square foot, or driveway is not included with that. However, if you've got a lot that is 10,000 square feet in an area where all the other lots are 5,000 square feet, you may want to add an extra 10,000 of the value for the lot. So in the event that you've got a property that they've got a view or a lot that's a little bit bigger, you would put in your increased value right here in K, what is this, K number 25. I'm going to just go back and let that run down to the bottom. Here are your line items. We don't go through these in the bronze program. In our gold program, we literally go line by line and have a setup sheet for each of these. For example, in plumbing, I might have a setup sheet that has 25 items that come down to $1 per square foot or a net number. But in the event that you're doing, this is by quantity, so we'll have quantity up at the top, or it's using square footage as the quantity multiplier. So it's either a quantity or else it's a square footage with $1 per square foot. Pretty simple stuff. We're not going to go through these lines one by one because, again, as I mentioned, we drill down to each of these elements. But here is the magic of reversion 22. This little button right here is calculate load in the formula based on a percentage of ARV. So in this case, we're actually pretty darn close. We originally, by the line item, said it was going to be 33,556, which comes out to $13.93 per square foot. However, let's just say that out the door you say, Alan, I really don't have time to go through these things. Why don't I just use a round number? And then you could go here and you say, I'm going to use, by the way, 30,000 is also part of the national promoters default number. And in case their difference came out, this would have been too small. They actually needed more money than that for this. But let's just say I need to cushion this to 40,000. Now, all of the calculations are based on the 40,000 as a bulk number. And it even calculates that you're 9.2% of the ARV, and you're taking a discount from the line items of $33,000. It's a you're actually adding an additional 16% to the budget, which comes out to $2.67 per square foot. Again, down to the penny of the square foot. Again, you can either use the bulk number by nothing more than a click, or the system will use the line items. Watch what happens down here in our section 4. Move it down one more. By just clicking that one thing, watch what's happening. All those numbers are interactive to the dollar that you're spending on your rehab. Very valuable. I'm gonna stay with, no, let's go with the 40 just for an example here. The reason for that, look what happens at 40. I'm at 9.2%. The national promoter was at 10%. Typically it's 8 to 12%. I know I'm a percent guy, but look what happened right here. 72 to 74. I'm literally less than 1% off 72 to 74. Didn't I say it's 72 to 75 cents? That's because the reason this is 74 is because we're at 9.2%. We're not at 10%. If that was at 10%, then they would get a little closer to that number. And here's the default by the national promoter, 67, 72, 59, 64, within 2 to 3 percentage points of somebody who's done thousands of properties. So I would say that we're probably in the ballpark with that. In the event Oh, we have to go back up here real quick. Let's go back up here to the kitchen. I pull in my my contractor. My contractor says, Alan, you're all full of it. There is no way that you can do this kitchen for $3,500. You have got to spend at least $5,000. That would be an additional $1,500. I'll put that right in there, and lo and behold, that will actually be calculated into the actual numbers. If we went back here, watch what happens. 35 instead of the 33. So it actually increases the dollar amount because my budget went up. In the event that it didn't, then we would work with something else. In the event that we said that there was a $10,000 value of the lot, there it is right there. It added the lot adjustment right there for you. So that's $10,000 more you can spend in the property in the event you do that. Here we are at, again, because I added this 10,000, that's why I went from 72 or 74 to 76. And again, here's our confidence number. Here is our cushion, 1, 2, 3 from above. And this is now telling us exactly, literally to the dollar, I could say to the penny, and we are at a penny to the dollar per square foot, right up there. Moving around a lot. But here you got 74 to 75, 76 cents. I'm off by what, 2 points, 4 points here and 5 points here. So we have got to offer something a little bit less, and that's also because our profit is at 12% instead of 15. If we were at 15 and 12, oh, let's make them national. Let's go to the national average. The national average is 15 and 10 and 15 and 10. And let's see where we come down to. Aha. Now we're at 71 and 76 and 66 and 61. You get the idea. You can literally get it down to, as I mentioned, everything is to the dollar or penny to the square footage. I'm going to just click that and see if we get closer. No, we're still in the range. As you can see, there's a lot of things going on here. I want to make sure that we are still in our PowerPoint. Does our PowerPoint say anything? Let's go to live program. We did that. And now you can go to the next video to move to the next level of the program. I really hope that was helpful. Again, kind of quick stuff, especially with the bronze. Our gold level goes down to, as I mentioned, probably another 10 lines per line item. After you've done about 2 or 3 of these things, you're going to use the 72 to 75. Maybe you'll go 70, maybe you'll go 76. If you need financing or are a wholesaler, you got to take off another 3 to 5 points if you're a wholesaler, and then you'll know what your number is. I really hope that that was worth your time and effort. I've got to figure out how to close this thing. I think it is, if I go to my Zoom, this might do it right here. No. There's some place on here where I actually close the Zoom. Oh, the stop share. That's it. And I think we are done for this event.